Hey everyone, this is Michael again, and welcome to the AEW Dynamite review. Dynamite tonight was from the Petersen Event Center in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And Dynamite tonight, I thought it was a solid show, in my opinion. It wasn't a great show by any means, but it was a solid show tonight. But on the show tonight, we had two trios matches. We had the Elite, the Young Bucks, and Kenny Omega. They end up facing Dante Martin and the Sydal brothers. Darby Allin was in action. He ended up facing Daniel Garcia. The other trios match was we had Matt Hardy and Private Party, Isaiah Cassidy, Mark Wen, versus Orange Cassidy, Chuck Taylor, and Will Yuta. We had Kris Statlander, the Alien, versus Nyla Rose. We had the Impact Tag Team titles on the line, where the Good Brothers defended the titles against Evil Uno and Stu Grayson of the Dark Order. And in the main event, it was the fourth labor of Jericho, where it was Jericho versus Wardlow, and MJF was at ringside to watch the match. Of course, as part of the five labors of Jericho, which if Jericho ended up winning the match tonight against Wardlow, he will face MJF next week on Dynamite. But overall, like I said, Dynamite was a solid show, but not great, in my opinion. And we also have the debut of AEW Rampage, which is this Friday, which is looking like a stacked show. I think it's going to be an awesome show on Friday for the debut. It's going to be on after SmackDown. And I can feel it's probably going to be an awesome show, and it'll make us get the bad taste out of our mouths of SmackDown if the show sucks. If SmackDown sucks on Friday. But that's something to look forward to also this week with AEW, the debut of Rampage. But we'll do cover Rampage, of course. But it's not going to be, on Friday. Possibly be up the next day on Saturday. But we'll see. But anyways, let's get started with the review. So Dynamite kicked off tonight with MJF. MJF was backstage with Wardlow, and he had an apple in hand. MJF ended up telling Jericho that he's already defeated him twice, and he has yet to win. He kept saying, that's got to be really bothering you, right, Jericho? So MJF was like, Jericho has gone through so much over the past couple of weeks, but it's made for some great TV. MJF wanted to say that Jericho is so close to a match against him, but he has to first deal with the most dangerous man in wrestling, and that is, of course, Wardlow. MJF then wanted to say, let's say Jericho does somehow get through Wardlow, and that he's going to go through all this just to find out he's still better than Jericho. Wardlow then ended up saying that he's most definitely going to beat Jericho. So MJF then responded to that, ended up saying, like you beat Cody in the cage, get the job done tonight. So that was what MJF had to say. But overall, decent segment with MJF. And then it was announced that we're going to be seeing Kenny Omega versus Christian Cage on September 5th at All Out. Of course, Christian Cage, he is undefeated still. He is the number one ranked guy in AEW, so that's impressive. And then we had the first match of the night, which was the first trios match, which was Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks, Matt and Nick, versus Dante Martin and the Sydal brothers, Mike and Matt Sydal. Of course, Omega and the Bucks came out along with Michael Nakazawa, Don Callis, and Brandon Cutler. And this was a solid trios match, in my opinion. We had Matt Sydal end up starting off the match by going at Matt Jackson. We had Mike Sydal end up tagging in. He ended up dropping down on Matt Jackson's arm. And we had Mike end up delivering some arm drags on Matt Jackson. Dante Martin ended up coming in. And Dante Martin ended up delivering a drop kick and then a hurricanrana to Matt Jackson. A nice hurricanrana he did to Matt Jackson. So Omega then ended up coming in, delivered a blind shot to Dante Martin, but then he ended up taking enziguris from Dante Martin. So Dante Martin then ended up nailing a high crossbody on Matt Jackson. He went for the cover. Matt Jackson ended up kicking out too. So we had Omega and the Bucks. They ended up getting some cheap shots on Dante Martin as Mike ended up tagging into the match, Mike Sydal. So Omega was in there. He ended up delivering a chop to Mike Sydal's chest. Mike Sydal was trying to work his way over to the corner. He was avoiding a bunch of strikes. He was able to tag in Matt Sydal. So they ended up delivering a Fisherman's Buster on Matt Jackson. Went for the cover. Nick Jackson ended up breaking it up. Matt Sydal delivered a hurricanrana on both of the Bucks. And he ended up applying a Cobra Clutch on Matt Jackson. And we had, later on in the match, Omega ended up delivering a hurricanrana out to the floor. And we had Dante Martin end up running into a knee to the face by Matt Jackson. So Omega ended up delivering a V-trigger on Dante Martin and then the one-winged angel. But Dante Martin ended up countering that. Dante Martin ended up delivering the Pele kick. He then took a V-trigger from Omega. And Omega ended up rolling him up. Dante Martin ended up kicking out too. Omega then ended up rolling through a backslide and delivered a V-trigger again to Dante Martin. And Dante Martin here, with the reversals that he did, reversing the one-winged angel, it was awesome. So, like I said, Omega delivered the V-trigger again to Dante Martin, and then he hit the one-winged angel. And they ended up doing the triple BTE trigger on Dante Martin. Went for the cover, and there you go. The Elite ended up winning the match. Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks. Post-match, Tony Schiavone was in the ring. Don Callis then snatched the mic away from Tony Schiavone. And Don Callis got on the mic, and he got interrupted by Christian Cage. Christian Cage ended up making his way out. Don Callis ended up saying that Christian is a little outnumbered, and he isn't dumb enough to come in the ring. So then the Jurassic Express ended up coming out. Out came Luchasaurus and Jungle Boy, who are the number one tag team contenders, to face the Bucks for the titles. So they end up getting in the ring, and Don Callis ended up telling Christian that he'll be facing Omega at All Out. And we had CM Punk chants from the crowd. Don Callis ended up saying that Christian is a hell of a ring general, and that Kenny Omega is going to make sure he gets that 5-star match he always wanted. So Don Callis then ended up telling Christian to head to the back because they aren't going to be wrestling in Pittsburgh. So Christian got on the mic. He ended up telling Don Callis, "Are you done talking, you carny piece of shit?" Which got a big pop from the crowd when Christian said that. So Christian ended up saying that the match is locked in, but Kenny Omega has more than one title match. So Christian then ended up announcing that Kenny Omega will face him for the Impact World Championship on Rampage this Friday. So Omega didn't like that, and neither did, Don Callis and the rest of the Elite. So then Jungle Boy got on the mic. Jungle Boy then said that he talked with Tony Khan. And Jungle Boy ended up announcing that next week on Dynamite, he and Luchasaurus will face both Matt and Nick Jackson for the AEW World Tag Team titles next week, which the Bucks were shocked at that. So there you go. We have Kenny Omega versus Christian Cage this Friday on Rampage, on the debut of Rampage for the Impact World Championship, and the Bucks facing Luchasaurus and Jungle Boy for the World Tag Team titles next week on Dynamite. Both matches are going to be pretty good. So, looking forward to both matches. Looking forward to the match on Friday and to the match next week on Dynamite. But overall, it was a good segment between the Elite and Luchasaurus, Jungle Boy, and Christian Cage. And then we had a video package. Video package was for Malachi Black. And Black ended up saying that he wonders if he's actually the bad guy in this. Black ended up saying that he did what he said he would do to Cody Rhodes. He went on to say that he feels like Cody has one foot in wrestling and one foot somewhere else. So Black was warning anyone else who dares to step up to him. So that was what Black had to say. But he had a good match last week with Cody Rhodes, even though it was for like 10 minutes. But still, he looked good in the ring. And can't wait to see who Black's next opponent is going to be. But that was that. And then we went to Miro, the TNT champion. Miro went and announced that he will have a match against Fuego del Sol this Friday on the debut of Rampage. And if Fuego del Sol wins, he will receive an AEW contract. So there you go. Miro versus Fuego del Sol this Friday on Rampage. But I have to say Miro is going to win the match either way. So then we had Daniel Garcia versus Darby Allin. And this was a good match here. Daniel Garcia came out along with 2.0, formerly known as Everrise when they were in NXT. And of course, Darby Allin ended up coming out along with Sting. So the match went back and forth between the both of them. And both Garcia and Allin were trying to go for pinfalls. Daniel Garcia ended up doing an arm lock onto Darby Allin. We had 2.0 end up helping Daniel Garcia with distraction because Daniel Garcia was working over Darby Allin's arm. And then he launched Darby Allin's shoulder first into the corner. Daniel Garcia went into the corner, started delivering some chops to Darby Allin. So Darby Allin then head up to the top. We had Matt Lee of 2.0 caused another distraction, which led to Daniel Garcia taking a shot to Darby Allin's back. Daniel Garcia then took control of the match, delivered a hammerlock drop to Darby Allin. He went for the cover. Darby ended up kicking out at 2. Daniel Garcia ended up delivering a chop to Darby Allin's back. And Darby Allin came back. He ended up slapping Daniel Garcia in the face. But Daniel Garcia ended up trying to go for a suplex. But Darby Allin ended up reversing it. Darby Allin then delivered the springboard coffin drop right into a rear naked choke to Daniel Garcia. Darby Allin then hit the over-the-top stunner to Daniel Garcia. He then headed to the top rope and he nailed the coffin drop on top of Daniel Garcia. Darby Allin then went for the cover. And there you go. He ended up winning the match. Post-match, 2.0 ended up trying to attack Darby Allin. Sting ended up coming in. He ended up putting a stop to 2.0, attacking Darby Allin. Sting ended up beating up both 2.0. He ended up hitting Matt Lee with a suplex on the ramp. And pretty much that was basically that. But overall, it was a good match with Daniel Garcia and Darby Allin. So then we went backstage. We had the Death Triangle there. And the Death Triangle, I'm talking about Andrade trying to break them up. But they need to do something. Penta ended up saying that he wants Andrade first. So Pac ended up telling them not to worry about Andrade. And that he's got Andrade. Pac ended up telling Penta and Phoenix that he wants them to focus on the tag team titles going forward, as they are the best, and that they deserve the gold. Pac ended up telling Andrade they don't know or like him, and don't get why he's obsessed with the group. Pac ended up telling Andrade if he wants a match, he's easy to find. So that was what Pac had to say. But it's gonna be Pac versus Andrade at All Out, and I think, in my opinion, Penta and Phoenix, they're gonna turn on Pac at All Out. I think Penta and Phoenix are going to be with Andrade, and then there's going to be a whole Death Triangle Andrade stable there. I sense that happening at All Out. But it's going to come. Penta and Phoenix, they're going to be turning on Pac, and they're possibly going to align with Andrade El Idolo and Chavo Guerrero. So that's going to happen. I can see that happening. So we had the second trios match. We had Chucky T, Orange Cassidy, and Wheeler Yuta versus Private Party and Matt Hardy. Of course, we had Kris Statlander, the Alien, there with Chucky T, Orange Cassidy, and Wheeler Yuta. You had the Hardy Family Office with Private Party and Matt Hardy. This was a decent trios match here. When the match started, we had Orange Cassidy. He ended up trying to put his hands in his pockets. Matt Hardy didn't allow that from Orange Cassidy. So Matt Hardy was doing delete, delete, delete to Orange Cassidy. Orange Cassidy then ended up putting Matt Hardy's hand in his pocket. And Matt Hardy then delivered a side effect, went for the cover, and Orange Cassidy kicked out of 2. Matt Hardy got up on the second rope. Orange Cassidy slowly rolled away. Matt Hardy then charged at Orange Cassidy in the corner, hit Orange Cassidy in the chest. Orange Cassidy then ended up going up to the second rope. He ended up doing a lazy Hardy taunt. He ended up just flipping down on Matt Hardy. Went for the cover, which Hardy ended up kicking out of 2. Private Party ended up coming in. They were trying to do a double team on Orange Cassidy, but Orange Cassidy avoided it. Orange Cassidy ended up tagging in Wheeler Yuta. Cassidy then ended up hitting some light kicks to Isaiah Cassidy. And Wheeler Yuta delivered an elbow dive on Isaiah Cassidy. Yuta ended up putting Isaiah Cassidy down to the mat. Went for the cover, which Isaiah Cassidy ended up kicking out of 2. Mark Wen delivered a knee to Yuta's back. And they were continuing to work over Yuta. Yuta was able to land a double drop kick to both Isaiah Cassidy and Mark Wen. At this point, we saw the Bunny and Kris Statlander. They were joined at each other at ringside. And then Nyla Rose then ran out. Nyla Rose ended up dropping Kris Statlander, which they have a match later on in the night. So when Nyla Rose dropped Kris Statlander, she ended up smiling, and she walked back up the ramp. Jack Evans ended up putting Orange Cassidy down, and Chucky T was trying to fight off, Matt Hardy and Private Party. Chucky T ended up delivering a flip to the outside, which he ended up dropping the Blade and Angelico. So they went back to the ring. Isaiah Cassidy ended up getting popped in the air. Chucky T then ended up powerbombing Mark Wen down on Isaiah Cassidy. Of course, we had We had Isaiah Cassidy doing his famous, hilarious scream. So he ended up hitting a spinning Liger bomb. Taylor ended up hitting a spinning Liger bomb, which he went for the cover, which Matt Hardy ended up breaking it up. Orange Cassidy was in the ring, delivered a spinning DDT on Matt Hardy. And he then delivered a kip-up suicide dive out on Matt Hardy. So at the end of the match, we had Orange Cassidy end up coming into the ring. He delivered the orange punch on Isaiah Cassidy. Jack Evans had a distraction, which allowed Matt Hardy to throw Isaiah Cassidy into Orange Cassidy. They both went out to the floor. Matt Hardy delivered the twist of fate on Wheeler Yuta. So Matt Hardy went for the cover. And there you go. Him and Pirate Party, Isaiah Cassidy, and Mark Gwen ended up winning the match. Overall, it was a decent trios match. And I know, since they're doing, trios matches, you could tell that at some point down the line, trios championships are going to make their debut. Well, I can see that happening. But overall, like I said, decent trios match. So then we went backstage and we saw Dasha Gonzalez. She was talking with Andrade about Pac's challenge. Andrade ended up saying that Pac is very ungrateful. So Andrade ended up telling Pac that he should be careful what he wishes for. So Chavo Guerrero ended up offering the idea of Andrade facing Pac at All Out. So that match looks like it was made official. So it's going to be Pac versus Andrade at All Out. And like I said earlier, I can see Penta and Phoenix turning on Pac and aligning themselves with Andrade. We might see that at All Out. So then we had a video package that featured Santana, Ortiz, and FTR. Ortiz ended up saying that if FTR has the stones to get in the ring with them again, they should do it. Santana wanted to say that they are coming for blood over and over again. He kept saying that FTR better show up because both him and Ortiz aren't going anywhere. So that was that. That was the video package. Pretty decent video package there. And then we had Nyla Rose versus Kris Statlander. We got this match after in the trios match where Nyla Rose ended up coming out and ended up dropping Kris Statlander. So they end up facing next. But this was a quick match. Pretty much this was basically a squash match. Statlander was holding her ribs after Nyla Rose ended up attacking her in the previous match, in the trios match, where she was on the outside. Of course, Nyla Rose ended up coming out along with Vicky Guerrero. Kris Statlander came out along with Orange Cassidy. So Statlander ended up getting in the ring. She ended up getting run over by Nyla Rose. Statlander then delivered some kicks, but Nyla Rose ended up landing a pounce on Kris Statlander. Kris Statlander ended up trying to go for some punches, but she ended up taking a German suplex from Nyla Rose. Nyla Rose ended up charging at Statlander, and Statlander ended up pulling Nyla Rose off the apron, and she then hit a moonsault on Nyla Rose. We saw Orange Cassidy and Vicky Guerrero. They were face-to-face on the outside, and Vicky Guerrero just screamed at Orange Cassidy, which made me pick up my remote and mute the fucking TV. Just ear-shattering there with Vicky Guerrero just screaming at Orange Cassidy. So Nyla Rose ended up delivering a choke slam to Kris Statlander on the apron. She went for the cover. Statlander kicked out at 2. At the end of the match, Statlander ended up landing a powerbomb on Nyla Rose. She went for the 450 splash off the top rope. She went for the cover. And there you go. Kris Statlander ended up winning the match. Overall, quick match. It was a squash match. Knew Kris Statlander was going to win it. Kris Statlander, she is decent in the ring, and I think she is very underrated, in my opinion. And then we went backstage, and we saw the Young Bucks, Matt and Nick Jackson. They were there with Brandon Cutler, the jobber, the guy who sprays cold spray on the Bucks and Kenny Omega. So Matt Jackson ended up saying that they struck again last week, getting rid of Hangman and Page, which Page wasn't even on the show tonight. So they ended up saying that tonight they showed the world why they are truly elite. Matt Jackson ended up saying that for a year, they've shown they are at the top of the division. Nick Jackson wanted to say that next week's match will be as easy as a layup. So he ended up going to hit a layup, and Luchasaurus ended up coming in and blocking Nick Jackson. Jungle Boy ended up getting the basketball because, of course, we had the basketball hoop back there. Jungle Boy ended up getting the basketball. Luchasaurus ended up setting a pick on Matt Jackson, and Jungle Boy ended up scoring the basket. So Luchasaurus and Jungle Boy, they were taunting the Bucks as they end up heading off. And that was basically that. But in my opinion, the Bucks are going to be dropping the titles. I see it. If it's not at All Out, if they don't drop the titles at All Out, they hopefully have to drop the titles at the New York show, at Arthur Ashe Stadium, because they're champions for a year, and I think it's about time for them to drop the titles. Either they don't drop the titles at All Out, they're going to drop the titles at the New York show, or hell, if they do drop the titles, imagine them dropping them at Full Gear. But in my opinion, I think the Bucks will be dropping the titles at Arthur Ashe Stadium on Dynamite as they come to New York. So that's how I see it. That's how I see the Bucks dropping the titles. It's either got to be at All Out or the New York show. Hell, I would be surprised, like I said, if they drop the titles at Full Gear. And then we saw a video package. Red Velvet was talking about her match against Britt Baker, a shot at the AEW Women's World Championship. Red Velvet ended up saying that she can't be upset with Britt Baker starting a new era, and that she isn't thrilled with Britt Baker being at the top. She ended up saying that she had to prove herself when she first came into AEW, where she had to get in the ring against everyone that has helped her climb the ladder. So we saw, clips of her segment that she was in with Britt Baker from last week's Dynamite. And both her and Britt Baker are going to have a match this Friday on the debut of Rampage. So we'll be getting that. So that should be a good match there. And then we saw Tony Schiavone in the ring. Tony Schiavone ended up welcoming Britt Baker, DMD, the AEW Women's World Champion. And this was in her hometown. She got a big pop from the crowd. So we had points in the crowd where the crowd was having the towels swing around. Fans were swinging towels around. Britt Baker ended up talking about how she wasn't afraid to step up when AEW needed a new champion to usher in a new era. She ended up saying that she bleeds black and gold just as much as anyone. Baker went on to say that it's been a rough year for everyone, and that she wants to present hope to the crowd. And she ended up holding up the AEW Women's World Championship. So Britt Baker ended up telling Red Velvet might have a glimmer of hope if she had a match anywhere else, but not in Pittsburgh. She kept saying on Friday on Rampage, Red Velvet is swimming in the deep end with the Sharks. So Baker then ended up holding up the title, and Red Velvet ended up coming in. Red Velvet ended up taking out Britt Baker, started swinging away at her. We had the referees end up coming into the ring to keep Red Velvet and Britt Baker away. And the crowd broke out in a DMD chant. And that was how the segment ended. But Britt Baker, she is good on the mic. And this match with her and Red Velvet on Friday, on the debut of Rampage, it's going to be a pretty decent match there. Looking forward to it. But in a sense, Britt Baker is going to come out retaining the title. Britt Baker is not dropping the title that quick. So now we saw Ricky Starks, the FTW champion. Ricky Starks ended up saying that him and Brian Cage keep missing each other, like two ships passing in the night. Starks wanted to say that the two can meet face-to-face next week. And it's just going to be them two. He's not going to have Hook. He's not going to have Powerhouse Will Hobbs. It's just going to be the two of them. So Brian Cage ended up saying that he doesn't believe that. But it doesn't matter, because he's the machine. So that was that. But the two are going to meet face-to-face next week. This rivalry between Starks and Brian Cage is still going. So then we had the Impact World Tag Team titles on the line. The Good Brothers defended the titles against Stu Grayson and Evil Uno of the Dark Order. We have Brandon Cutler out there for the Good Brothers for Gallows and Anderson. And Colt Cabana was out there for Grayson and Evil Uno. We had Scott D'Amore from Impact. He's the Impact EVP. He was on commentary for the match. We had Doc Gallows and Carl Anderson get into the ring. Stu Grayson ended up flipping out on Gallows and Anderson. Evil Uno ended up going to work on Carl Anderson. So we had Grayson and Evil Uno. They kept on tagging in and out as they kept control of Carl Anderson. Evil Uno was out on the apron. Brandon Cutler ended up pulling Evil Uno off the apron. And that led to Colt Cabana end up running over. He ended up punching Brandon Cutler in the face. And Colt Cabana tried to chase Brandon Cutler off. And Frankie Kazarian ended up coming out. Frankie Kazarian came out and he clotheslined Brandon Cutler. He then dragged Brandon Cutler all the way back to the back. So it led to Stu Grayson end up stepping off of Doc Gallows, of Doc Gallows' back, and he ended up hitting a spinning DDT on Carl Anderson. Grayson then delivered a springboard twist and senton onto Carl Anderson. Grayson went for the cover, which Doc Gallows ended up breaking it up. And he ended up dragging Carl Anderson over. We had Grayson end up dragging Carl Anderson over. And he ended up tagging in. Grayson ended up trying to pick up Doc Gallows. Anderson ended up tagging in. Delivered a double Pele. Evil Uno ended up tagging in. Him and Grayson ended up double teaming on Carl Anderson. And Carl Anderson was then launched into Gallows. At the end of the match, we had the Magic Killer from Gallows and Anderson being done on Stu Grayson. He went for the cover. And there you go. The Good Brothers end up winning the match, retaining the Impact World Tag Team titles. So that was that. Overall, it was a pretty decent match. So then we saw Camille, the NWA Women's World Champion. So she ended up introducing herself. She ended up saying that she will eventually face Layla Hirsch at NWA Empower, which is their pay-per-view. Camille ended up telling Layla Hirsch that she is not going to get her off her feet, and the whole world is going to watch her beat Layla Hirsch. There you go. We're going to have Camille versus Layla Hirsch at NWA's pay-per-view Empower, where the NWA Women's World Championship is going to be on the line. So then we saw Tony Schiavone. Tony Schiavone was in the ring, and QT Marshall and Aaron Solo were also in there. Tony Schiavone ended up saying that it's been about 3 weeks and that he is ready for QT Marshall to apologize to him. QT Marshall ended up getting on the mic. He ended up saying that Tony Schiavone should be apologizing to him. He then ended up telling Schiavone that he instead gets to watch his son, Kris, get taken out. So Nick Comoroto ended up yanking in Kris, Tony Schiavone's son, into the ring. So Tony Schiavone's son, Kris, ended up getting punched in the stomach by Nick Comoroto. So Tony Schiavone ends up being forced to apologize to QT Marshall. QT ended up saying, not good enough, because Tony was like, "Oh, I apologize, you son of a bitch." So QT ended up saying, "Oh, apology not accepted." So he ended up hitting a cutter on Kris, Tony Schiavone's son. And then out came Paul White. Paul White got into the ring, and Aaron Solo ended up getting shoved into Paul White. Paul White ended up delivering a choke slam to Aaron Solo, and Paul White was staring straight at QT Marshall, and I was like, oh my god, are we really going to be getting Paul White versus QT Marshall? Hopefully this is a one-off for Paul White, hopefully this is a one-off. Do we really need to see Paul White in the ring still going, do we really need it? Hopefully this is a one-off. So, not looking forward to this. So that's Paul White's first feud in AEW with QT Marshall. How great. So then they went over what we're going to see next week on Dynamite. Of course, we're going to be seeing the Young Bucks versus Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus, where the AEW World Tag Team titles are going to be on the line. Bucks are going to be retaining, of course. We're going to be seeing Shawn Spears versus Sammy Guevara. Darby Allin and Sting versus 2.0 in a Texas Tornado tag match. So we're going to be seeing those matches next week on Dynamite. And we also saw little footage of what happened on AEW Dark Elevation, where Joey Janela ended up turning heel on Sonny Kiss, which Sonny Kiss was his tag team partner. So Joey Janela is now a heel. Didn't expect that, because I don't watch, Dark Elevation. So they play that little clip. And then we had the main event. Chris Jericho versus Wardlow. This was Chapter 4 of the 5 Labors of Jericho. And MJF was out there ringside to fully watch the match. So this was a pretty good match here between Jericho and Wardlow. Jericho ended up starting off the match. He started fast on Wardlow. Jericho ended up going to the top rope, delivered a double axe handle, a code breaker to Wardlow. Went for the cover, which Wardlow ended up kicking out at 1. Wardlow then ended up beating up Jericho, released Jericho with a suplex, and Wardlow and Jericho ended up out on the floor. Jericho ended up getting whipped into the barricade by Wardlow, and Wardlow on the outside was throwing Jericho all over the place. Wardlow ended up driving Jericho back first into the ring post, which after that he tossed Jericho back into the ring. Wardlow was looking to go for a powerbomb to Jericho, and he ended up doing a powerbomb to Jericho. And he ended up powerbombing Jericho a lot. So Jericho was put up on the top rope by Wardlow. Wardlow was looking to finish him off with a strike. So Jericho came back, and he was able to lock in the walls of Jericho on Wardlow. MJF ended up coming. MJF then raked the eyes of Jericho as Aubrey Edwards didn't see it. So MJF was trying to interfere. He ended up passing the Dynamite Diamond ring to Wardlow, and Aubrey Edwards ended up catching MJF, and she ejected MJF, sent him to the back. So Jericho ended up clocking Wardlow with the baseball bat, which Aubrey was focused on MJF. And that was when Jericho ended up hitting Wardlow with the baseball bat. And then Jericho ended up hitting the Judas effect. Jericho then went for the cover. And there you go. Jericho ended up winning the match. Post-match, Shawn Spears ended up jumping into the ring. He ended up taking down Jericho. Sammy Guevara then ran down to the ring. He ended up swinging away on Shawn Spears. Wardlow ended up getting back up, started stomping away at Sammy Guevara. MJF ended up getting back into the ring. He ended up locking in the Fujiwara armbar on Jericho, and Jericho's arm was bad. He was selling the arm injury. Jericho was tapping out to the Fujiwara armbar, and so Hager ended up coming out. Hager ended up coming into the ring, which MJF and Shawn Spears and Wardlow ended up getting out of the ring. Wanted nothing to do with Hager. So MJF ended up getting on the mic, and he ended up saying next week they will face each other. Him and Jericho will face each other. But he's taken away something from Jericho in the match. So MJF ended up announcing that in the match next week, Jericho will not be able to use the Judas effect. And that Jericho won't be coming out to Judas, the music. So nobody will be singing to Jericho's music next week. MJF ended up saying that Jericho will be coming out to Dead Silence. So MJF ended up saying that if Jericho uses the Judas effect, he will automatically win. MJF will automatically win. So MJF ended up predicting next week that Jericho hasn't just met his match. He's met his successor. And his successor will be Maxwell Jacob Friedman. So that was what MJF had to say. But, Jericho, he can use the Judas effect next week. And if he does, MJF will win the match. But Jericho has two other, moves that he can use. He can use the Code Breaker. He can use the Walls of Jericho. Submission. So he has two other moves that he could use. So, but we all knew that Jericho was going to get his match with MJF, his rematch with MJF. So, but that was how Dynamite went off the air tonight. But overall, this was a good match between Wardlow and Jericho. Overall, solid Dynamite tonight, even though it wasn't a great show by any means. But anyways, that's it for the Dynamite review. Thank you all for watching. Hope you all enjoyed this review. Definitely give the video a thumbs up, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you all later.